Is Octopath Zero a hero? Let's find out. Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon, and since Square Enix was kind enough to send me a Steam code, I was able to check out Octopath Traveler 0 ahead of release. So the question is, does this live up to the Octopath name? Or does it feel like a recycled mobile game masquerading as a full JRPG experience? Why don't we talk about it? Octopath Traveler 0, like its numeral suggests, is a prequel to Octopath Traveler. Although, 0 makes it seem like it doesn't exist at all. Like it's an absence of an Octopath Traveler. Should have been called Octopath Traveler -1. I'm very smart. 0 puts you in control of your own voiceless protagonist, and to begin, you can customize a few things about them to make them your own. Sort of. There aren't a ton of options, but really they could have given me a stock character and I wouldn't have minded, so even having a few options is nice. The keyword though is voiceless, and I wasn't sure what to expect with that. Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 were both about telling moving stories surrounding each of their 8 main characters, so giving us a character with no personality seems like it might be a detriment. And if you've seen much of my channel, you might know how much I generally hate silent protags. I'll say more about how this plays out later in the review, but the TLDR is that I actually didn't mind the silent protagonist this time due to how the game is structured. Again, more on that later on. So you and your friend Stia live in the town of Wishvale, and while I know that kind of makes it sound like it should exist somewhere in the Kingdom Hearts universe, this is firmly planted in Orstera, a land full of violence and strife and just outright terrible things happening to good people. Case in point, Wishvale is raided and everyone is either killed or scattered to the winds. Your character gets a magic ring, and you have to confront the evil people who have taken the other magic rings so that you can bind them all, and hey, wait a minute. I'm not a Tolkien guy, but even I know that sounds a lot like the plot of Lord of the Rings. I'm kidding, I don't really know the plot of Lord of the Rings, just that there are rings involved. And presumably a lord of them. So, you and Stia set out with a twofold mission. 1, to beat the bad guys that destroyed your town and take their magic rings from them, and 2, to rebuild Wishvale from the ground up into an even better town than it was before. Immediately, if you're an Octopath series veteran, you can tell this is pretty different than what we've seen. In the previous 2 games, you choose a main character, cobble together your party within the other 7 characters, and experience each of their stories chapter by chapter until the end. This is much different in that there's now an overall framing device built around reconstructing your hometown and gathering the rings, along with a single main character that participates in every plot along the way instead of giving up the spotlight entirely to a different character. You'll use the familiar Octopath Traveler combat system, though it's gotten what I would call a pretty darn significant upgrade since the last entry. And you'll be rebuilding your town with a relatively simple town builder with advancement there gated behind your progress in the main story. Speaking of the main story, let's get into that first. Like I said, in Octopath Traveler 0, you control your single-player created character for the entire game. No more handing over the reins to whichever character's story you're taking part in. That main character is unfortunately silent, but fortunately, the other characters rarely engage with you, so there aren't that many moments that feel awkward with a character talking to you and you can't respond. It's honestly one of the least jarring implementations of a silent protag that I've seen in a JRPG, and if that sounds like damning with faint praise, well, it is. But the silent protag didn't bug me too much in this game. Now, would I have preferred the main character be voiced and have a personality of their own? Yes. Yes, always yes. 1000% yes. I hate silent protagonists. They are a plague on storytelling. But I understand silent protagonists are going to happen, and if they must, I'd prefer it to be like Octopath 0, a character that is important to the plot, but not the story. Does that make sense? Like, your main character is the chosen one. You have the all-powerful Ring of Ilfrix, so you're vital to the overall plot of the game. But the moment-to-moment storytelling doesn't rely on your character at all. The rest of the cast takes over and manages to make an incredible amount of compelling drama without you. This is where I have to confess that I am not finished with Octopath Traveler 0. This game is long. Like epically long. 2 times now, I've reached what I was sure was the climax of the story, in part because both times I was told I was in the finale, and one time I even saw credits roll, only to realize I still have a long way to go. I'm over 50 hours in at this point, so I feel comfortable talking about the game and letting you know whether I recommend it or not. I don't see my opinion changing drastically one way or the other, but this is my roundabout way of saying, if you want to experience this game in its entirety, buckle in and get ready for a long ride. What I've experienced in my 50 plus hours in terms of story has been incredible. This is a game I genuinely don't want to put down. I didn't want to stop playing to write this review that I'm speaking to you right now because I'm that hooked on it. More than most other games, it really experiments with structure. It uses multiple shorter stories that all feed back into the main narrative and introduces characters you'll continue to see pop up both in that particular story and in other stories down the line. Not only that, but the whole town building segment of the game is its own story with its own story beats and drama and character interactions. The town story and the ring story play off each other, and your progress in one is gated a bit by your progress in the other. This keeps you from getting too far ahead in one and allows for more drama, and at least for me, it prevented me from getting burnt out on town building. I'm not a huge fan of that sort of thing in games, but the way Octopath Zero handles it is beautiful. It's not overly complicated, there are plenty of options to automate tasks that you'd rather not do manually, and the aforementioned gating forces you to take a break and experience other parts of the game before you continue. I really found the town segments compelling, and that was something I did not expect. The stories are compelling too. Honestly, this is top tier storytelling from Square Enix. I love the stories in the original Octopath Traveler because they were able to be gutting and moving and emotionally resonant without needing to be necessarily about saving the world from an evil god or whatever. Here, the stories are often focused on more than just one character too, which gives them a stronger, punch. Even though there are often bigger stakes here than in the first game, the emotional gut punches still come, and they still tend to be small and focused on characters. This is a game that is not afraid of tragedy. Some stories are just not going to end happily for everyone. It doesn't ever devolve into a grimdark mindset, but it is pretty consistently dark and heavy. These writers are not afraid to kill characters, y'all. Speaking of characters, let me tell you about them. There are more than 30 characters who can join your party in this game, including all 8 of the original Octopath Traveler cast. That is a lot of characters, but I don't need to tell you that. You can math. What I do need to tell you is how having a team that large works in this game. Well, it's good and bad. I love having the variety, and it does give you a nice sense of accomplishment when you get to add someone new to your team, but having so many characters means that most of them don't really get much of a story. You'll acquire a new character typically by completing a short side quest, which sometimes doesn't even really involve combat or challenge in any form, and then that character is in your party. They won't participate in the meaningful story moments unless the story moment requires them to, which won't be too surprising for series fans since that's how it's always been. A few characters are actually deeply involved in the plot, like Stia and Fen, but they're a small minority out of the dozens of characters. I remember initially being concerned about the inclusion of the original cast because I worried it would feel like a gacha game thing or like fan fiction. Like, why are they all teaming up before they supposedly met each other? But as I played, it kind of occurred to me that actually, this game more or less explains why they were all willing to travel with each other in the original Octopath Traveler. They all already knew each other, so it's not so weird they'd up and abandon their lives to go off and help a stranger fix their problems. I mean, that's mostly my headcanon, do with that what you will, but it felt like a justifiable solution to the problem I created in my own mind. I doubt the writers put that much thought into it. There are actually an abundance of incredibly interesting characters in this game. They just happen to be the major players in the various stories that take place. Like the blind girl living with her boyfriend, a knight apothecary working for an evil warlord, or the mafioso who wants to take back his hometown from some rich lady taking over their turf, or the playwright who wants revenge on a rival who stole his wife from him. Again, since your main character is silent, these other characters are really the protagonists of their chapters, and they are just absolute bangers of stories. Octopath has always been great at this, and they're even better here than they've ever been. The performances from most of the actors is quite good, and if you watch dubbed anime or play a lot of video games in English, you'll probably recognize a lot of voices. I mean, there are so many characters in this game, so the cast is huge. I did say the performances are good for the most part, because there are a couple that... I don't know. I almost hesitate to say this because I don't want to be a jerk, but I guess I am a critic, so it's kind of my job. There is a minor character named Lebrant, and the English actor for Lebrant sounds like AI.
No one alive can claim to have never made one. Princess Aloudy, I will go and fetch them.
Like, his intonations in something like 90% of his dialogue sound legitimately like an AI-generated voice. It doesn't help that he has that sort of resonant baritone sound that companies model their AI voices after, but he largely isn't putting a lot of emotion into his delivery, so it sounds even more like AI. This was a miss on both the acting and even more so on the directing side, because a voice director definitely should have stepped in with some notes on that performance. But aside from that and one or two other minor roles, the acting is very good. So is the writing. Octopath doesn't fully go down the high fantasy road that games like Final Fantasy XVI and Dragon Quest I and II Remake do with their dialogue, but it's slightly more elevated than standard English, and it feels like a good balance for the type of world this game takes place in. And the villains. Oh my god, you guys. This game has some of my new favorite villains in all of JRPGs. They are just truly despicable, but despicable in a realistic sort of way. There also seemed to be an effort to capture some of the feel of Kefka from Final Fantasy VI in a couple of these guys, and I appreciate that sort of chaotic character as much as I like someone a bit more nuanced in their evil. Despite having a huge cast of characters that unfortunately mostly go without stories, there are still more than enough fantastic characters here to make this an extremely compelling storytelling experience. This is drama with a capital D, and I love it. The combat system will be familiar if you've played either of the two previous games. It's all about strategizing around your use of the break and boost systems. Enemies have weaknesses to different types of weapons and spells. You hit them with those enough until they break, and then you can wail on them for a full turn while they're defenseless. One way you do that is by building up boost points, which allow you to either attack multiple times in one turn, or to cast a much more powerful version of a spell. Every character gains a boost point each round they don't use any, so if you're patient, you can launch some pretty powerful attacks. Each character has a particular job, which comes with typically 2 types of weapons they can equip, along with a set of unique skills. Your main character is a chameleon and can take on any job you want, of course, because you are the chosen Mary Sue. You learn abilities by gaining job points, and unlocking battle skills also unlocks passive abilities that give you stat boosts and other bonuses. Having so many characters and so much variety in terms of combat abilities is a lot of fun, and I loved being able to master an ability, which then turns it into a skill that others can equip. But I'm burying the lead here, because what really makes Octopath Zero's combat stand out is the fact that you can now have 8 characters in combat at one time. Is this the biggest active party in a JRPG? No, I guess not. I can think of at least one that has more. Pretty sure Lufia Returns on the Game Boy Color let you have 9. Can you think of any others? I'm blanking on any others. But still, 8 characters is huge. In practical terms, only the front 4 members can attack, and the others remain in the back row and regenerate HP and SP. But each front row member is paired up with the person behind them, and on their turn you can swap them with a tap. This isn't just a nice to have thing though, it's actually pretty vital to mastering the combat. Cycling your characters through helps to keep them healthy and constantly building boost points so that you're always ready to unleash big attacks on enemies. There's a real rhythm with the combat that you can get into with a little practice, and that, coupled with the fact that monsters no longer seem to be ridiculous damage sponges like they did in the previous games, means that I never dreaded random battles. In fact, I actually found myself grinding from time to time, not really because I needed to in order to overcome a particular challenge, but just because I was enjoying the combat. It's a much needed refresh on the series' combat, and I frankly love it. Now, the town building, like I said before, initially I was a little nervous, but it's handled so elegantly here that I have literally no complaints. You'll gather materials throughout the world in order to construct buildings and other items, which isn't an arduous process at all. You'll come across what you need on the paths between places, just naturally gathering everything I encountered, and that I never really found myself lacking for materials. Really, it only happened maybe twice in my entire playthrough, and the nice thing is the game straight up tells you where you need to go to find the material you're missing. It doesn't hide its mechanics behind a bunch of confusing menus or tutorials. It's straightforward and it gets the job done quickly. If you're a hardcore sim fan hoping for some hardcore sim action in your Octopath game, well, you're not going to find that here. It's stripped down, and that's the way I like it. Hope no one takes that out of context. No, I'm good. As you make your way around the world, you'll find some villagers that are willing to relocate to Wishvale, though sometimes you have to bait them with a particular type of food or item. Different people give you different bonuses, like increased experience for characters in the training facility or a better yield on crops. Putting people in the right facilities is key to making sure you maximize what you get out of Wishvale, though, like I mentioned earlier, you can hit a button and automate the placement process completely if you'd rather not deal with it. Your playable characters take up residence there too, and you can unlock a few different tiers of interactions with them by bringing them specific items. It's not much in the way of character development, but it unlocks some nice bonuses, and it's worth putting in a bit of effort for. Most of your interpersonal interactions in the game are handled via path actions, which have been around since the beginning of Octopath, but they're a little different here. Previously, your path actions were determined by who you had with you. Now, every townsperson you encounter will have 3 path actions you can do, though not every person will have the same 3 actions. You can inquire of everyone, which lets you learn a bit about them, but the other options will vary. Some people you can entreat for free stuff. Others will make you pay for it. Still others will give you stuff, but only if you can beat them up first. And some people will join your group as guest characters that you can summon via the menu in combat. Inviting new citizens to Wishvale is also done through the path action system. In the previous games, I didn't pay much attention to the path actions. For whatever reason, I didn't find it very compelling. But I actually like them quite a bit more here because they now have much deeper gameplay implications, especially with how they connect to building your town. Definitely a big improvement in my mind. I don't have much to say about the aesthetics. Octopath Traveler introduced us to HD 2D. I mean, kind of. It's just branding for 2D sprites on 3D backgrounds, which has technically been a thing since the 90s, but I guess they have a lot of cool effects now. So if you like HD 2D, you'll like the way this looks. If you don't like HD 2D, well, this is more HD 2D, so you probably won't like it. The music is as gorgeous as ever, in part because a lot of previous tracks are reused here, but honestly, Yasunori Nishiki is brilliant and his compositions feel so iconic in this series, both old and new. One of the few modern-day JRPG soundtracks I own physically, both on CD and vinyl, is Octopath Traveler, so that should tell you in how much esteem I hold the music in this series. And yeah, Zero continues the trend. I'm going to tell you something you might find surprising if you're like most people who've played Octopath Traveler 1 and 2. I loved Octopath Traveler. I got fully sucked into the different stories, and the art style was so novel and cool at the time. The music became one of my all-time favorite video game soundtracks, and the gameplay was old school while still having a lot of modern-day convenience baked right in. There were issues with the first game, sure, but by and large, I loved it. Then came Octopath Traveler 2. It set out to do the same thing as its predecessor, but to do it better in basically every way. And it succeeded. Characters now had more meaningful interactions with each other, for one thing, which was really the main criticism about the first game. But I never finished Octopath 2. I lost interest. How can that be, though? If I loved the first game so much and the sequel was all that, but better, why did it lose me? I think it lost me because it reused too much. I don't mean in terms of assets. I have no issue with games reusing assets as much as they want to. I guess, to me, it just felt like a low-effort attempt at basic iteration. And that's not what I wanted to see from a new series. It was too similar, and I'd already played that game. I wanted something different. I felt the same way about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, by the way. I think this is just something about me I'm learning now. That's, I think, why I fell in love with Octopath Traveler 0. This, to me, is what Octopath Traveler 2 should have been. This is the series taking a meaningful step forward by maintaining its core gameplay while expanding what you can do and the scope of the stories it tells. I know this is based on a mobile game, but truthfully, there is no remnant of that mobile game to be felt here. This is truly a step forward for the series, and if they continue down this road, I think Octopath Traveler will be here to stay. Anyway, that's all. Let me know what you think of the game if you've gotten a chance to play the demo, and tell me if you're planning to pick it up, or if you already have. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to everyone who subscribes. I really appreciate you. Thanks as always to my members for supporting me and the channel. You guys all rock. Also, check out my podcast, the JRPG Pursuit. We put out new episodes about JRPGs every single Wednesday. Link for that is in the description. So, with that, until next time. Bye.